can't imagine.
I think it's amazing, that story.
They're beautiful birds, aren't they? But would you want 40 in your local village?
I'm fascinated. I've got so many questions.
Yeah. Where did they come from?
Yeah, we're not sure. And maybe it's quite nice to have them walking around the village. If you do live there, do get in touch with us this morning in Staffordshire, gbnews.com.
Can they fly, peacocks?
/your say. Let's get Jack Carson to find out this.
Yes, we want Jack Carson to confront a peacock.
I thought you were going to say attacked by a pigeon.
If he's attacked, you take it for the team, Jack. That's the point.
Frontline reporting.
Absolutely.
From GB News. We've got a lot to get through this morning. I'm interested as well to have that conversation about that Trump portrait. Does it make him look less menacing?
I thought, no.
It's awful. Yeah. And, of course, we're going to be in Portugal, where the police are searching for Madeleine McCann still. Are you happy with money, taxpayers' money, still being spent on the...
You might be surprised when we tell you just how much has been spent on the search for her by the British police.
But I would like to see that family get closure.
Of course.
Absolutely. Sam Francis has got your news, and then back to us.
Bev, Andrew, thank you very much indeed. At 34 minutes past 9. Well, as we were hearing there, a new search for Madeleine McCann is underway today in Portugal, nearly 20 years after the British toddler vanished. Police are scouring more than 20 plots of land east of Praia de Luz, near a cottage once lived in by the main suspect, Christian B. Tents have been set up and dirt roads sealed off near Atalia, with officers expected to search wells, ruins and water tanks. It's the first major operation since 2023, when investigators focused on a remote reservoir 30 miles away. Authorities say they're now looking for Madeleine's remains or any trace she may have once been there. Thames Water's hopes of survival have taken a major hit as private equity giant KKR pulled out of a potential rescue deal. The company, which supplies a quarter of the UK's population, now faces the prospect of entering special administration without urgent new investment. Thames Water says an alternative plan is being discussed, but no firm details have been confirmed. The utility giant has been under intense financial pressure for months, with mounting debt and investor uncertainty. Talks are ongoing as the government is watching closely. And staying with the water industry, England and Wales water supplier is facing a once-in-a-generation reckoning after a scathing report uncovered systemic and interlocking failures. An independent water commission says fundamental reform is needed in 5 key areas, from government strategy to tougher regulation, transparency and asset management. It doesn't rule out creating a single super-regulator to replace the current fragmented oversight system. Commission Chair Sir John Cunliffe says the system is not working for anyone. A new legislation will likely be needed. The government says it will respond in full, calling it a chance to, quote, clean up our waterways for good. The man accused of firebombing a pro-Israel rally in Colorado planned the attack for a year, according to the FBI. Mohammed Soliman allegedly disguised himself as a gardener before throwing Molotov cocktails into a crowd, injuring at least 12 people, including a Holocaust survivor. Court documents say he told police he wanted to, quote, kill all Zionists and would do it again. Officials recovered 16 unlit petrol bombs and a backpack sprayer filled with gasoline. Soliman, an Egyptian national who overstayed his US visa, faces federal hate crime and attempted murder charges. And 24 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli fire near an aid distribution site in Rafah, according to local reports. Dozens more were reportedly injured, some seriously, as crowds gathered early on Tuesday for food and supplies. The Israeli military says its troops fired warning shots at individuals who approached from outside designated aid routes and posed a perceived threat. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, backed by the US and Israel, runs the aid site, though the United Nations and major NGOs have refused to cooperate, calling the system unsafe and politically compromised. You're up to date just after 9:30. I'll be back with a full roundup at 10 o'clock. Now, though, it's over to Andrew and Beth.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good morning. Welcome to Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Now, Madeleine McCann, it is a major search. It's been billed as the sort of now or never search for either clothing or clues about her disappearance. This huge search has started in Portugal. German police, 30 police officers have left Germany because the key suspect is German. I worry about this, Bev, because this family has had so many false dawns, the parents of Madeleine, and because the suspect is in prison, is convicted of raping a 72-year-old woman until September.
Yeah.
And they think once he's out of prison, he'll vanish.
Christian
disappear.
Bruckner. He has claimed he has no association to the Madeleine McCann case, of course. But the police clearly have narrowed down who was in the area at the time who might have been capable of taking a child or doing some sort of despicable act or even taking the life of a child. And so he remains in the frame quite clearly. But they obviously they do not have any firm evidence. Now, we don't quite know. We're going to be going over to Portugal in just a moment to a reporter who is there. We're not entirely sure what has triggered this new search in this particular area, because it's around the home that Christian Bruckner lived in at about the time that Madeleine went missing. I would just love to see this family have closure. Oh. Hundreds, thousands of children go missing every year, tragically. And yet this one caught the imagination, didn't it? As a newspaper man, Andrew, why was this so gripping when others weren't?
They were a beautiful little girl with those very distinctive eyes, middle-class parents, both doctors, and it was the classic middle-class dilemma. They were on holiday, they chose to have dinner with their friends and leave the children alone. They were checking on them every half an hour. They were in a Mark Warner resort, which was geared for parents like that, who could relax with the children. And then, of course, terribly, in the twists and turns, they fell under suspicion themselves. But
why? I mean, it's quite damning, really, to say that it was such a gripping story because they were middle class. So that by definition, that means that if it was a
summer holiday. It's a classic summer holiday. It was quiet. Nothing much was happening, and the whole world got involved in it. And it's every parent's nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. You go for dinner, and your little and remember, she was in a room with her twins, who now are. I think the twins are now 20 years old.
Yeah.
So the little girl was removed, the twins slept through it, and there was even a suspicion that Jerry McCann, when he went back to check on the kids, that the man might have even been in the room at the time.
Yeah. I think what's most remarkable about this story is, one of the most remarkable things, is that couple has stayed married.
Yeah.
The pressure that must have been on that family. We can't begin to imagine the emotional roller coaster. It's a cliche, but it will have been an emotional roller coaster for both of them. They've raised those twins, by all accounts, fantastic children. I know people who know them, and they say they're brilliant. They're very sporty. They've grown up to be very wonderful young adults. And all credit to the McCanns to have stayed together, to carry on fighting. I never judge them for leaving her in the room. I've been there with 3 children when you're on holiday in these resorts, and it feels very safe.
I can remember talking to my own mum about this, and she said, well, when you were kids, we had a couple of holidays in Butlins. Mum and Dad went off to dance in the evening with their friends, and we were left in our chalets, and the redcoats came round and would check up.
Yeah.
That's not much different to what happened with the McCanns.
No, it wasn't.
Was the world different in 2007 when she went missing to when I was a kid in Butlins in the 60s? There were still nasty men willing to steal children.
I think the only thing that, having been on those sorts of holidays with other families, and you do that thing where everybody nips back to check, especially when they're little and they go to sleep and they're not waking up. The only thing was that it was next to the main road. I think that would have made me think differently about it.
And do you know, I remember some years later when, I don't know what year it was, but the Home Secretary was Theresa May, and there was a reception. It was to do with missing children. It was in the House of Lords reception. And I saw Madeleine McCann at the reception, and she was talking to me.
The mother?
Yeah, the mother of Madeleine McCann, and she was laughing.
Yeah.
And I ended up having a conversation, and I said, am I Is it weird that I thought, why are you laughing? How can you ever laugh? And she said, so many people think my life had to stop completely because my daughter was removed. But life has to go on.
Of course it does.
And I'm a mum to 2 other children. And yes, I still see things that make me laugh. But let me tell you, it's not a morning I don't wake up and the first thing I think about is Madeleine.
Yeah.
What an ordeal.
Let's talk to Nick Pisa, senior global reporter at the Mail Online, who is in Portugal. Nick, great to see you this morning. So do we know why this new search has been enacted now?
Morning to you. Well, basically, in essence, as you said earlier in the introduction, the clock is ticking on Christian Bruckner. As we know, he was cleared of unrelated sex offences back in October at a trial in Germany, and he is currently serving 7 years for a rape that was committed here in Pride Luce in 2006 on an elderly American woman, and that sentence is up in September this year. There are some additional additional sentence that's been bolted on to the end of that. So it's possible that he could actually stay in jail until January of next year. So the police are looking for any sort of evidence that can positively link to Christian, to keep him in jail whilst they continue their investigation. At the moment, it is all circumstantial evidence they have against him, the fact that he was living here, that he was working here, that his cell phone places him here back in May 2007. We also know, as I say, that he has convictions for paedophilia and that he raped this elderly American woman here as well in 2006. During searches after he was named as the prime suspect in 2020, almost 5 years ago to the day, back in Germany where he used to live, some USB sticks and CD drives were found, and on them is evidence of paedophile activity. And the theory is that perhaps there is some sort of geolocation on that evidence that has brought them back to here, to Pride Luce. The searches are going to be focusing on 3 locations, a wooded area between Lagos and Pride Luce, where Madeleine vanished from, and then also at the Ocean Club, where Madeleine vanished from.
And Nick, 30 German police officers. Are the Portuguese police getting involved? Because they were heavily criticised, weren't they, about their response to the to the disappearance of Madeleine in the first place?
Yes, so the Portuguese police are here en masse. Actually, they've closed off certain sections of the road around Alitalia. It is impossible to reach the exact search location, so we're having to find a vantage point, Andrew, to try and get a look at what they're doing. I have spoken to them privately, and they are very sceptical of finding anything here. They say that time has moved on, and in fact, where they are searching at Italia now was actually waste ground 20 odd years ago when Madeleine vanished, and now there are now new houses there. But as you say, yeah, the police at the time came under a lot of criticism, were a bit slow in starting their investigation. Then they brought in the cadaver dogs, which they say tracked Madeleine down to a hire car that the family were using, which again was completely dismissed at later stages, and they were also made arguidos as a result of this, sort of suspects in the case. But obviously we should stress there's absolutely no suggestion they had anything at all to do with this disappearance of their daughter.
Nick, last time we spoke to you, another missing person that obviously had the tragic end, which was Jay Slater, the Brit that went missing on holiday. Right. That coroner's inquest is happening at the moment, isn't it? Can you just bring our GB News viewers and listeners up to speed, Nick, with what's happening in the Jay Slater case?
Yeah, sure. Well, that was last month, a few weeks ago, at Preston Coroner's Court. And the thing that was sadly affected that case was the fact that several key witnesses who were in Tenerife at the time failed to show up for that inquest. They include the friends who Jay was with at the time. Lucy was the friend of hers that he was with, and who raised the alarm. There was another friend of his called Brandon, who he went on holiday with to Tenerife last year. They both failed to show up. Lucy's parents claimed that they had no idea the inquest was taking place, while Brandon said that he was away on a pre-planned holiday. We heard from Jay's mother at the time, who called for these witnesses to come forward, and crucially as well, I don't know if you remember, there was the guy who drove him back to Masca, to the village. Yeah, a guy called Ayub Kasim, convicted drug dealer. Again, the police had difficulty in locating him. We actually managed to find him back in June last year. He denied having any involvement at all and said he'd given Jay a lift back to the Airbnb near Masca where he was staying, and then sent him off in the morning with a phone charger, and never saw him again. He has now disappeared as well, although he has been prominent on social media, saying that he has absolutely nothing at all to do with his disappearance and is happy to help the police at the next inquest.
Nick, brilliant job as always. Do keep us up to speed with what's happening there in Portugal, won't you? Nick Peaser, their senior global reporter at the Mail Online.
And back to Madeleine McCann, why I think another reason why the story became such a big story, they stayed there for the search, and their cameras were there constantly, and they engaged with the media, the cameras, every day, and they were incredibly articulate. They had family here talking to the media. It was extraordinary. And
they've done a brilliant job of keeping it in the media for 20 years. So that...
And, but some people might be surprised, Bev, it's cost £13.2 million.
Yeah, I don't resent them a penny of that.
It is the most expensive search in British history.
Yeah. Let us know what you think. GBNews.com/your say. But still to come, the Tories have warned of backdoor blasphemy laws after the man who burned a copy of the Quran is convicted of a public order offence. We're going to be hearing from the man at the centre of the story. But up next...
Find out why President Donald Trump has updated his portrait in the White House. Wonder if he likes this one. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
The recent heatwave is easing across parts of Spain and Portugal, but plenty of severe thunderstorms remain across northern parts of Europe. But across the Canary Islands, Spain, Portugal, mostly settled, a little cloudy at times, but we could see some quite severe thunderstorms across southern France, southern Germany, northern parts of Italy. This could bring frequent lightning, hail and also some strong winds. But elsewhere across the central and eastern parts of the Mediterranean, plenty of sunshine and temperatures are on the up through the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I think there's a real culture shift when you leave the forces, which some people really struggle with. Not all do, many don't. You know, of those 2.1 million, not everybody's struggling with loneliness and isolation. But those that do really struggle to find their way, and then you get in that spiral.
They've been institutionalised, they've been in a with other men or other women for many years.
So you've lived in that community, you've felt valued, you've had purpose, you've had a great team and an identity, and then in some cases you don't. And when you lose that, some people struggle with that. And so Friday, as you saw, is an environment where you can bring that community back together again.
And it might actually be that some of the people to whom the army is an appealing option are already the kind of characters that want that security and they need that routine and stability, especially as younger men maybe. And so to have that taken away must be difficult. What more can be done, Richard, to help veterans when they do transition out of the army?
I think there's some good mechanisms in place for people to transition from all three services, Army, Navy, Air Force. But some people struggle, perhaps those who leave quickly as well. So if you leave quickly under a medical discharge or for disciplinary reason, you haven't necessarily left on your terms or within a time. If you were planning on serving 20 plus years and that's over in a flash, that's a game changer. And so you need that support network, family, friends, but also the MOD provide and also local community provides. And
I was talking to one guy and I said, what's going on with your leg? And his wife said, he won't tell you. He lost his leg on duty, would not talk about it. He said, I was just doing my job. That's when it's incredibly humbling, and we saw a lot of this at VE Day. Bev and I were down at the Palace for 5.5 hours, and we met some extraordinary figures. And it does, you do you do feel a sense of humility in their presence, and then you see some of them are sleeping rough on our streets.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew and Bev.
So Donald Trump's updated his official portrait just months after taking office as he wants to appear less menacing. So we're asking you, do you think it's worked?
So we're joined now by US journalist Chapman Bell, and we'll take a look at the picture. Morning, Chapman.
Morning.
Great to see you. If his intention was to look less menacing, I'm not sure he's quite achieved that. I think it looks quite sinister.
Well, I mean, like him or not, I think everyone can agree Trump is a little bit image conscious.
A little bit?
A little bit.
So if you're listening on the radio, we've got the one on the left, he's looking bloated.
Well, so the one on the left is a painting that hung in Colorado that he really did not like.
I'm not
and
surprised.
Some say threw a tantrum having it removed from the courthouse. He said no one likes an unflattering portrait, but he thought this was actually a dig at him. Now, the new portrait with the black background and the red tie replaces actually another portrait by the White House photographer that had Trump in a blue tie with more lighting and an American flag behind him. So this new portrait, well, he looks less intense than the previous one. Some are saying it still isn't very intense, though. The previous one, many people likened to his mugshot taken at the Fulton County Jail.
Yeah, the famous mugshot.
So maybe he's trying to steer a little bit different route from that one.
Yeah.
But one thing that is being brought up is signs of photoshopping. But is that unusual this day and age? I think everybody uses Photoshop, but it does land people in hot water. Just look at the Princess of Wales and her Photoshopping and outlets refusing to use it. But, you know, this new portrait replacing the previous portrait, and others are saying, is this going to be a regular occurrence? Is he going to just be rolling them out?
He doesn't look like a 78-year-old man, does he? He looks younger.
No, well, but, you know, we know...
Shopping?
Well,
touching up?
Perhaps they said a little under the chin, maybe, but... Presidents are image conscious. I mean, Donald Trump maybe takes that to a new level, but let's face it, if you are the leader of the free world, as often the president's described, look, FDR went through great lengths to never be seen in his wheelchair. Didn't want to give weakness of, you know, his polio, a debilitating disease he was suffering. Go back to the 1960 presidential television debate between Kennedy and Nixon. It was said that if people listened on the radio that they were pro-Nixon, seeing it on TV, appearance won, and everyone
You had the dark morning shadow.
Exactly.
You see,
So that's swarthy.
It's funny because I think Trump 2.0 is much less vain than Trump in his first term. I think he's much more, he seems much happier in his own skin. He's not as quick to criticise other people or kind of lash out like he was in the first version.
I'm not sure if it's alleged would agree
well,
with that.
I mean, you're going to always get a mixed response.
If you think how childish he used to be on Twitter, when he doesn't do that anymore, maybe because he's not on Twitter, he's got his own media, social media, but he used to be quite laughably sort of childish with some of his retorts. He seems like he reins himself in from that a bit.
Well, you know, he's done it before now, maybe. Maybe, you know, second time around, he's learned learned from a few mistakes or potentially learned how to do things more effectively. And maybe that was something that wasn't seen, though I don't know that everybody would agree.
No, I'm
that
sure they wouldn't.
And not always.
Tomorrow we're going to have a big day for tariffs. Any inkling what's going to happen?
Well, who can keep up with the tariffs these days? And, you know...
They've changed 4 times.
They change on a daily, hourly basis. The one thing that's gaining a lot of traction is that term taco, which, you know, the president heard in a press briefing last week and wasn't really aware of, apparently.
Trump always chickens out.
Exactly. And, you know, just look at social media right now, Trump portraits, and that will be a major theme in them. But I think what ultimately the the tariffs are outlined to do is to bring people to the negotiating table. And so far, maybe it seems like there have been some deals to be made from it.
Oh, no.
Chapman Bell, great to see you.
Come and see us again.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. We've got the latest on the Madeleine McCann search.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A9 Keswick Bridge is closed to high-sided vehicles due to strong winds. In East Riding of Yorkshire, one lane is closed on the A63 eastbound due to a collision. In Warwickshire, all lanes on the A46 southbound are blocked following a collision near the A45 Coventry West. In Essex, delays on the A120 westbound due to congestion. In Surrey, a broken-down vehicle on the M3 eastbound exit at Junction 3 has caused one-lane closure, and on the trains, major disruption between Lockerbie and Carstairs affects Avanti West Coast services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you could be our biggest winner yet, touring in this stylish Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. This brand new 2025 model comes complete with kitchen and bathroom areas and enough space to comfortably sleep a family of 4. We'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to add a few of your favourite things. Don't miss out as lines close on the 6th of June. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Chu, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Tuesday, the 3rd of June, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Madeleine McCann. German police officers are racing to find new evidence at the prime suspect's old home in Portugal.
Well, it is a race against time because only months remain on his current prison sentence. He continues to deny any involvement in Madeleine McCann's disappearance.
Steel crunch talks. Trade Secretary Jonathan Reynolds is meeting American officials to push for an exemption on steel tariffs. They could be set as high as 50% tomorrow.
And one of France's top politicians has blamed Brexit for the surge in small boat crossings. Nothing, of course, to do with French border guards smiling and taking photographs as those dinghies make their way across the Channel to Britain.
And it's 8 years today since the terror attack where 8 people were killed on London Bridge. Do you remember this? We're going to be talking to Roy Larner, who took on 3 of the attackers.
And there's a new Trump portrait. The White House has replaced Donald Trump's official portrait with a mugshot-inspired picture. What do you make of it?
And pesky peacocks. We're going to be checking in on the Staffordshire village, which is being terrorised by wild peacocks running amok.
Well, it hasn't taken us long to find them. There's thoughts there could be up to 40 in this village. That's according to the parish council. And now we're bringing you the big guns. Look at this, feathers spread. We've been speaking to residents. We'll bring you those views on what they think about these peacocks. Are they a nuisance or are they part of the furniture?
Do they peck and do they peck hard?
Well, Jack Carson, if you could find out, get close enough, Jack. Get in there with your microphone.
Yeah.
None of this standing by the side, watching them, Jack.
You wouldn't get too close to a swan because you know they'd go after you, particularly if there's a cygnet nearby.
Well, let's see if peacocks do the same. You know, come on, that's why Jack Carson gets paid the big bucks to go on the dangerous front line.
This is called intrepid journalism.
Let us know your thoughts this morning, gbnews.com/your say. Do you like that portrait of Donald Trump? Actually, the more I look at it, the more I can see why he would like it.
Big hair as well.
Oh, well, he likes his big hair. You can't talk, Mr. P.
With his tin of hairspray.
Pot, kettle, black.
Mine
right.
is not as big as that. And it is mine, by the way. I'm not sure Donald Trump's is all his.
Sam Francis is here with your news.
Very good morning to you. Just after 10 o'clock, leading the news this hour, a new search for Madeleine McCann is underway in Portugal, nearly 20 years after the British toddler vanished. Police are scouring more than 20 plots of land east of Praia de Luz, near a cottage once lived in by the main suspect, Christian B. Tents have been set up and dirt roads sealed off in nearby Atalia, with officers expected to search wells, ruins and water tanks. It's the first major operation there since 2023, when investigators focused on a remote reservoir 30 miles away. Authorities say they're now looking for Madeleine's remains or any trace she may have once been there. Here at home, Thames Water's hopes of survival have, well, taken a major hit as private equity giant KKR pulled out of a potential rescue deal. The company, which supplies a quarter of the UK's population, now faces the prospect of entering special administration without urgent new investment. Thames Water says an alternative plan is being discussed, but no firm details have been confirmed. The utility giant has been under intense financial pressure for months, with mounting debt and investor uncertainty. Meanwhile, England and Wales' water industry is facing a once-in-a-generation reckoning after a scathing report uncovered, quote, systemic and interlocking failures. The Independent Water Commission says fundamental reform is needed in 5 key areas, from government strategy to tougher regulation. It doesn't rule out creating a single super-regulator to replace the current fragmented oversight system. Commission Chair Sir John Cunliffe says the system is not working for anyone and that new legislation will likely be needed. The government is threatening legal action against Roman Abramovich to ensure £2.5 billion from the sale of Chelsea Football Club goes to Ukraine. The funds have been frozen since 2022, when the Russian billionaire was sanctioned following Moscow's invasion. Abramovich says he wants the money to help all victims of the war, including in Russia. But ministers say it must go solely to Ukrainian humanitarian aid. The Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Foreign Secretary David Lammy say they're deeply frustrated and even ready to take the dispute to court. In the United States, the man accused of firebombing a pro-Israeli rally in Colorado planned the attack for a year, according to the FBI. Mohammed Soliman allegedly disguised himself as a gardener before throwing Molotov cocktails into a crowd, injuring at least 12 people, including a Holocaust survivor. Court documents say he told police he wanted to, quote, kill all Zionists and would do it again. Officials recovered 16 unlit petrol bombs and a backpack sprayer filled with gasoline. Soliman, an Egyptian national who overstayed his US visa, faces federal hate crime and attempted murder charges. And 24 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli fire near an aid distribution site in Rafah, according to local reports this morning. Dozens more were reportedly injured and some seriously as crowds gathered early in the morning for food and supplies. The Israeli military says troops fired warning shots at individuals who approached from outside designated aid routes and posed a perceived threat. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, backed by the US and Israel, runs the aid site. The United Nations and major NGOs have refused to cooperate, calling the system unsafe and politically compromised. Those are the latest headlines for now. Plenty more still to come right here with Andrew and Beth.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth on a Tuesday morning. It's only Tuesday.
It is. Now, could we see any breakthrough in the case of Madeleine McCann? I hope so.
Yeah, I do.
I feel rather sceptical because this family have been through so many false starts and false dawns. But the police, 30 police officers from Germany are searching for fresh evidence against the prime suspect and convicted paedophile Christian Bruckner.
Well, it's the first extensive search for Madeleine since 2008, and Mark White is here to tell us why this search may be happening now. Mark, you've been covering this story as well, probably from day one. Do you have hope that this might be the end of this hideous saga for this family?
I have to say I'm not optimistic at all. I was out in Portugal a couple of years ago for GB News when we had that search around the reservoir and the dam, a beauty spot about 40 minutes from Praia de Luz, where the McCanns were staying when Madeleine McCann was allegedly abducted. So at that point, we were actually quite optimistic because it seemed that the German authorities had intelligence. They had photographs and videos taken by Christian Bruckner, their prime suspect, at that location. It was a beauty spot that he'd been going to for years. So there was a real belief that actually this might have been a location that he took Madeleine McCann to, murdered her sadly and disposed of the body there. The German police and the Portuguese police are convinced that Madeleine McCann is dead. This is, as far as they're concerned, a murder investigation. But they found nothing at that location. And what I can glean from the current search parameters is they're kind of a bit, going back over old ground. They are looking around parts of the old Ocean Club where the McCanns were staying, wooded areas, areas going back to a property that Christian Bruckner used to live in at that time. The reason why he was or is their prime suspect is because he used to live in the area around about the time that Madeleine McCann disappeared. He was a handyman occasionally at the Ocean Club in Praia de Luz. His mobile phone, the cell site evidence, suggested that he was in Praia de Luz at the time that Madeleine disappeared and not that far from the Ocean Club complex. But that's lots of circumstantial evidence. They've never found anything that directly links him to Madeleine McCann, and that's certainly what they're looking for at the moment. But I have to say, I think it's a bit of a long shot.
And part of where they're looking, Mark, I gather, was wasteland, and it's now built on. So you imagine that would have been completely turned over and churned again and again.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. It's... you're talking now the better part of 2 decades since Madeleine McCann disappeared. And, of course, things disintegrate and decompose. And then when you add to that general ground erosion, building on new sites and things, it all makes that task all the more difficult. If there's no sort of obvious evidence above ground initially, how do you know exactly where you want to look to go below ground? So that's why kind of firm intelligence about a specific location is certainly very, very useful to the investigators in conducting what can be, a search involving ground penetrating radar and the like. But if you're just kind of looking at multiple sites because you know that they might be linked to Christian Bruckner, the chances perhaps of finding something are lessened.
It makes me think of the Yorkshire Ripper. He never, ever gave up the details of where some of those last victims were, to the dying shame of his parents who died not knowing where the little ones were.
No, well, Christian Bruckner has been completely uncooperative with the German authorities, and you can understand why, because at the moment he's serving a 7-year prison sentence for the rape of an American tourist in Praia de Luz a year and a bit before Madeline's disappearance. He was also convicted of other paedophilia charges previously as well. Clearly, if he was to admit this, he would be in jail perhaps for the rest of his life. So he's been uncooperative. They're not getting help from him. They've had some help from people that have shared prison time with him, people that apparently he was friends with and spoke to in a bar as well, and then a lot of the other evidence that they've pieced together, including searches of the kind of the mobile home that he was in Germany, where they found some evidence of his previous involvement in sort of paedophilia as well. But say nothing directly linking back to Madeleine.
Our inbox this morning is obviously very busy, Mark, because this case has always captured the imagination of the public.
In polarised opinion too.
Noel says, I don't care what anyone says, the McCanns should have been prosecuted for neglect and still should. A child of 3 should never be left alone, especially in a holiday environment. I never left any of mine on their own. Shame on them. Just in case you're interested, I am from Northern Ireland, where we look after our own.
It's why it struck a raw nerve, this story, because it judged polarised opinion.
Yes, no, it absolutely has. And any time we report on it, you know, I'm sure your social media feeds, like mine, are full of people with their own theories about what happened to Madeleine McCann. There's also a great deal of anger amongst many people, actually, of what they see as a sort of privileged middle-class family who have been able to have a high profile that has got them the attention of successive Home Secretaries and very significant funding, well over £13 million for Operation Grange, which continues to this day, vastly reduced, but the latest grant was another £108,000, which is a lot of money to that. Well, I compare and contrast that to the likes of little Ben Needham, who disappeared in 1991 on the Greek island of Kos. I was there a few years ago when the investigators from that local police force up in West Yorkshire, or South Yorkshire, I think, managed to get the some extra funding, 450,000 eventually, from the Home Office. And they've had some funding, but nowhere near the kind of funding. And Ben Needham's mother, who is convinced that, you know, her little boy may have been abducted, the police actually think he met with an accident involving a digger on that island, but they've never been able to find him. They've tried to keep it in the media spotlight for years and years, and occasionally, you know, we return to the Ben Needham story, but it's enjoyed nowhere near the kind of publicity and sort of coverage that Madeleine McCann's disappearance had. They're both absolutely horrific and tragic cases.
Yeah, and this investigation will trigger worldwide interest again.
They will.
Because, of course, there have been sightings of her all around the world, allegedly.
I think it would be fair to say that probably this is, you know, on an international scale, the most high-profile missing person ever. You know, it makes headlines all around the world.
Really does.
Victoria got in touch from home. Morning, Victoria. She says, I remember the whole Madeleine case and having our baby daughter in the late 70s, staying in a hotel which had a baby monitoring service in the evening for parents. My heart went out to both of them, and I thought, there, but for the grace of God, go I.
Which, of course, is the complete reverse of what the other person
Exactly, and that's what... this story is used as a conduit, isn't it, for so many different issues. Like you say, it's about social class, it's about the media.
Parental responsibility.
It's about police, it's about funding, it's about what it is to be a good parent. That is why I think it's remained such a talking point for so many years.
And so divisive, you know, with many people having these conflicting ideas, you know.
But
lots of sympathy, lots of criticism on many fronts.
I think the majority of people this many years on would genuinely, I would like to think, would have compassion in their hearts to think, let this poor family be able to wake up in the morning and not have every morning a question, where is she?
What a huge strain on the parents and the little twins who are now 20.
Yes, I mean, and just that final point on those who are very critical of the McCanns for leaving the children alone, perhaps very legitimate criticism. But if they don't think that the McCanns beat themselves up every day over that decision, you know.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. Mark, thank you. We will, of course, keep you up to speed with any developments on that story as the morning goes on.
still ahead. Do we have black door blasphemy laws in Britain after a man who burned the Quran is convicted of a public order offence? We're asking, would he have been convicted if he'd burnt the Bible? You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
My mum booted me out. She kicked me out. I was 15 going on 16. Yeah. And she'd had enough. And, you know, I think she, like lots of parents, have their own issues as well. And I slept on the streets of Manchester for 12 months, which is, you know, was sort of an experience in itself. Regular occurrence, being beaten up, being urinated on, getting ill, feeling horrible. And someone took me in at first, and so I was essentially groomed into a gang that you know, were involved in nefarious means. And it was similar. It wasn't drugs, but it was similar to sort of the stuff you hear about county lines, where I was essentially a bit of a stooge, a bit of a runner. Here, go and do us a favour, and we'll put a roof over your head. That then I fled that eventually after I think close to a year. And it all come crumbling down. A few months later, there was phone calls from the police. You need to come in, otherwise we're going to arrest you.
When did you change?
I thought, I'm trying to find a bit of part-time work to get by around college. And they said, well, the thing is, it's the law. We've got to be careful about data protection. And in my sort of naive mind at the time, I thought, right, I'm going to write to my MP. They can change the law. They're going to do it. We're going to, you know,
good luck with that.
This. Yeah, quite. I know now the difference. So in the end, I've always been a bit creative and a bit of a talker, as you'll know.
Yeah.
I thought, no, I'm going to interview my MP. I thought, no, actually, I'm going to interview MPs, plural. So I went around the country, essentially knocking on doors with a letter, explaining my situation, going, this isn't right. So I interviewed Jonathan Aitken, former Tory Cabinet Minister. Andy Burnham took me under his wing because I had a bit of a go at him and said, you've agreed with me for the last 45 minutes of this interview. What have you done about it?
Yeah.
And he said, I like your attitude. Why don't you come and shadow me in Westminster?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns tonight from 7 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're nattering here in the studio because Renee Hoondekamp and Nigel Nelson are here, and we are going to talk to them in just a moment. But first of all, let's have a look. My favourite vehicle. It's the motorhome. Stop laughing at me, Renee Hoondekamp. You know I'd love it. £6,000, £7,000.
You can't have it.
Here it is.
I'd love it too.
There's just 3 days left to grab a chance to win. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be spending your summer touring in this stylish Elnag Baron 560 motorhome, worth over £67,000. This brand new 2025 model comes complete with kitchen and bathroom areas and enough space to comfortably sleep a family of 4. We'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to add a few of your favourite things, or just spend it however you like. Hurry, lines close on Friday. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Enter. Good luck. Time is running out. Right, we have got Renee Hinterkamp and Nigel Nelson in the studio with us now. And we, first of all, Nigel, want to talk about this story about the blasphemy law, effectively is what we're edging towards. So,
which was abolished 17, 18 years ago.
So this is a guy, Hamid, we're going to hear what you had to say on Patrick, but I want you to just set this up for us, Nigel, because Hamid Koskan spoke to GB News last night, but what did he do?
Well, what he did was that he's had a long-standing campaign with Turkey, and he went outside the Turkish embassy, got hold of a copy of the Quran, and then burnt it outside the embassy while shouting various slogans. For which someone came and attacked him, and he was stabbed, and the person who attacked him is now awaiting trial himself.
But he was in trouble for burning the Quran.
He was in trouble, not for blasphemy. This isn't a blasphemy law, which is an important point. He was in trouble for a hate crime.
OK, let's hear what he had to say to Patrick last night.
First of all, I got caught up in the moment and used a swear word and said this in my statement to the court as well. And the fact that I shouted the Quran must be banned, and also Islam is a terror religion. At the time, I defended this at court, and I'm still defending this. I've been studying the Quran for 25 years. I've been studying the paragraphs, the rules, and everything. And these words are not random. The slogans I'm shouting are not random sentences I'm making up. I'm an atheist, I'm an Islam critic, and I'm an activist. I've been writing and expressing my opinions for years, but now to be able to make a bigger impact, I decided this would be the right action.
Very measured.
Yeah, he's half Armenian, half Turkish.
Very measured, Renee. Very calm. Should we be living in a country where you can be in trouble for burning a religious book?
Of course we shouldn't. Look, I think burning a religious book is disrespectful. I wouldn't do it personally, but I would defend your right to do it. The problem that we have is it's really only one religion that sparks this kind of response. We currently have a teacher in hiding 3 years after in a blasphemy lesson showing a cartoon that offended the students' parents. I don't know if it offended the students. And we know that this kind of behaviour, this man's life is in danger, without a shadow of a doubt. This man needs to be very careful and is apparently in a safe house. This is the problem, because that is a blasphemy law by fear. It doesn't happen. We get preachers, Christian preachers are being arrested on our streets, on our high streets, every single week for disturbing the peace, because they've upset somebody. There are plenty of examples of this. Nigel's frowning, there are plenty of examples. But they don't have to go into hiding, because nobody is going to kill them. And that's what makes a de facto blasphemy law, the fear of being killed by one religion.
And why aren't we allowed to offend? Why isn't it legal to cause offence?
You are allowed to offend.
Well, that's all he did. He caused offence.
No, it's not all he did. What he actually did and what he was convicted for was hostility towards members of a religious group. That is a law, or that is part of a hate crime. Religious groups being religious is a protected characteristic. It would be no different if he'd insulted somebody over race, disability, or sexuality. That's what the law is there to say. So it's nothing to do with blasphemy. It is actually protected under a straightforward secular law.
So if he stood outside Westminster today, burnt a Bible, screamed about Christians, you think he would be arrested and prosecuted?
Yes, I do, actually.
I think he absolutely wouldn't. He might be arrested for breach of the peace. He would not be prosecuted.
Well, but I mean, obviously, Islam is far more sensitive about this than Christianity.
Is that OK, then?
No, well, hang on. Not a question whether it's OK. I think that a religion ought to be more robust than to actually worry about insults. So I think Christianity, therefore, is a more robust religion than, say, Islam, because Islam.
But doesn't that mean that we have to therefore be very careful to the extent to which we capitulate to what you describe as sensitivity. I would say running out and stabbing the guy that's burning the book, it's not sensitive behaviour, it's aggressive behaviour.
That's right.
Violent
Yeah.
behaviour.
Could have killed him.
Yeah, that's right.
Could have killed him.
And the man who did rush out and took offence, he will go on trial as well for doing that. The point I'm trying to make is things like the Free Speech Union are saying this is a backdoor blasphemy law, and it's not. It is a law that already exists. It has nothing to do with blasphemy.
It really is, Nigel. Look, we had a boy who scuffed a Quran, was paraded by police with his mother wearing a headscarf in front of the local imams, where they discussed it for 2 hours, where she begged them not to kill her son. This is going on in the UK. This isn't in Iran. This is in the UK, and the police facilitated that.
Well, there's also sort of a common sense view. We seem to agree that Islam takes it more sensitively than Christianity or other religions.
But you promote,
that means there's
what you permit.
That means we have two-tier tolerance.
Well, no, it doesn't. It means that where you cross the line to a hate crime...
But it's not hate. It's just freedom to offend.
No,
Why can't he hasn't got a right to?
But that's not what he was convicted of. He was convicted.
Well, I don't think he should have been convicted.
OK, but that's a view. I mean, what I'm saying is that this is the law. This is the law, and it's not a blasphemy law. It is a hate crime law.
Well, I think we have to protect the right to freedom to offend. I'm a Roman Catholic. My religion has been abused for years and decades, and we get on with it.
Absolutely.
We get on with it, Nigel. Do you remember the film Life of Brian? Imagine if that was made about the Muslim faith today. The cinemas would be burnt to the ground.
Yeah. We have seen films being taken off
all
because of a reaction. Listen, talking about the police and crime, let's talk about this award-winning police officer, Renee, who has been fired after he did what?
So, a teenager was reported by the public for threatening an elderly gentleman, brandishing a knife and attacking another young person outside of a fast food shop. This police officer turned up, he approached the young man, and he did kind of lose his plot, and he has admitted that, but he said he failed to act with self-control. He pinned the boy to the ground, he poked his finger in his face, he screamed at him some obscenities about the way he was behaving, and he did say that his behaviour was not reasonable or proportionate. As he was actually wrestling him to the ground, a Stanley knife fell out of this young man's waist pocket. Now, this police officer is an award-winning police officer, has won Neighbourhood Police Officer of the Year, has won all sorts of awards, has actually been fired, can never work again. Instead of being disciplined and maybe going on a training course to manage his temper, he's been fired. He wasn't reported by the child that he pinned to the ground, the 17-year-old. He was reported by his colleagues. And I wonder if this is partly due to the fact that we now insist all of our police officers actually, rather than coming up working on the streets, go to university, where they get radicalised into woke ideologies, where no one can say boo to a goose. So they see a police officer doing what many of us would go, well done, and they report him.
This is PC Lawn Castle, Nigel. Is this another example of where the police are not being supported?
Well, first of all, reading the evidence, I would have thought he should have got some kind of disciplinary action, not thrown out of the police. However, what he accepts is that he was guilty of misconduct. He just says that it wasn't gross misconduct. Obviously, when you arrest somebody, it's got to be handled within certain designated parameters. And in this case, he overstepped the mark. He also admits losing control, which is a pretty bad thing, actually, when a policeman arrests somebody. But whether or not he should have faced a punishment whereby he can never go back to the career that he presumably loves, that does seem a bit excessive.
We've got a serious shortage of police officers.
Exactly.
He's an experienced police officer. He made a mistake. I think people are allowed to
That's
make
my
mistakes.
point about disciplinary.
Yeah,
that's
maybe
my
a
point
rebuke.
There. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I think police officers should be allowed to get a little scally like that, run riot, threaten dogs. You should be allowed to push them up against the wall. You should be allowed to hold them on the ground. You should be allowed to point in his face and call him a swear word. So, you should be allowed to do that.
The panel that fired him said that the young man involved was intimidated and frightened.
Good.
Oh, good.
And,
what had he done to the old person?
He didn't treat him. The policeman didn't treat him with respect or courtesy, I'm afraid. When you've scared an old person, and we've seen an old person die recently when teenagers attacked, when you've scared an old person and brandished a knife,
victims again.
He won, like you say,
coming second.
He won National Bravery Awards twice, saving an elderly woman from drowning in 2023.
Do the circumstances matter? It's all very well for him to sit here trying to judge it.
No harm came to this boy.
But when it comes down, the police have to operate within the circumstances.
But does he have to? The police officer who's arrested him have to show them great respect?
And they will be. They use violence.
We need you to know as well that the victim, I will use that word, in this case, PC Lorncastle, is on with Nigel Farage tonight. He's going to be talking to Nigel on GB News, 7 o'clock tonight, so do not miss that. You two will be back in the next hour. Here's Sam Francis with your headlines.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom, just coming up to 32 minutes past 10. A major new search for Madeleine McCann is underway in Portugal, nearly 2 decades after the British toddler vanished from Praia de Luz in 2007. Officers from Germany and Portugal are scouring scrubland around 3.5 miles from where she was last seen. They're using radar equipment to scan beneath the ground. Searches will focus on wells, ruins and former trenches across 21 sites and are expected to last until Friday. The operation is linked to German suspect Christian Bruckner, currently in prison and due for release in September, unless further charges are brought. Madeleine's parents say their determination to leave no stone unturned remains as strong as ever. Thames Water's hopes of survival have taken a major hit as private equity giant KKR has pulled out of a potential rescue deal. The company, which supplies 1/4 of the UK's population, now faces the prospect of entering special administration without urgent new investment. Thames Water says an alternative plan is being discussed, but no firm details have been confirmed. The utility giant has been under intense financial pressure for months, with mounting debt and investor uncertainty. The death toll in Rafah has now risen to 27, up 3 from the last time we reported on the situation there. That's after Israeli fire hit an aid distribution site, according to local reports. Dozens more were reportedly injured, some seriously, as crowds gathered early this morning for food and supplies. The Israeli military says its troops fired warning shots at individuals who approached from outside designated aid routes and posed a perceived threat. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, backed by the US and Israel, runs that aid site. It comes amid fragile ceasefire negotiations, with both sides still locked in talks over hostage releases. Those are the latest headlines, a full roundup of all the top stories at 11 o'clock. Now, though, it's over to Andrew and Bev.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Still to come this morning, we're going to be going to Jack Carson in Staffordshire because he's on
Peacock Watch. There's a lot of peacocks. 40 in one tiny village. Why are they there? It's a mystery.
It is a mystery. Well, we'll find out because the locals are being terrorised. But on a more serious matter, of course, a breakthrough search today, possibly, we are waiting to see in the case of Madeleine McCann.
We've spent so far £13 million on the case. It is the biggest manhunt, person hunt, whatever you want to call it, in Britain's recent criminal history. What do you think about that? This is Britain's Newsroom, GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The Kessock Bridge is closed to high-sided vehicles due to strong winds. M4 eastbound at junction 40, tieback has closed slip roads for maintenance with diversions. An incident on A63 eastbound between M62 and A1034 closed one lane. Near Warrington, the M6 northbound exit slip at junction 21A to M62 west is partially blocked. In Warwickshire, a collision on A46 southbound led to lane closure. And on the trains, expect disruptions on Avanti West Coast and Transpennine Express services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It is 10:37. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev.
Now, there are new hopes of a breakthrough into the disappearance all those years ago, back in 2007, of little Madeleine McCann. A new search has been launched in Portugal.
But questions have arisen over how much the investigation has cost the British taxpayer, with the figure thought to be around £13 million.
Well, joining us today is the former police detective superintendent Shabnam Chowdhury, who's a great friend of this programme, and the commentator and author Anna May Mangan. Anna May, to you first. Do you think this is a legitimate use of public money when you consider other people whose children have gone missing have never had anything like the attention or the police resources devoted to the search?
Yeah, well, this latest one that they're doing, actually they've added another 108,000. So it's not as much as the entire sum over 18 years. So it's not that expensive, but it's a big high-profile case. The world needs to know what happened to Madeleine McCann. Her parents need to know, and I just think the police need to solve this. They've got a prime suspect, and the drive at the moment is because he's going to be released in September. And if they don't do this additional search now, he might be out there to do it again to somebody else's child. So I don't think you can put a value on finding this child or other missing children where there is evidence, and there's a reason to continue looking. Ben Needham, I think his search, they carried on with that about 10 years ago, was the latest development on that one. And a lot of them have no clues, but there is stuff here that they can do for Madeleine McCann, and I definitely think they should.
Shabnam, I'd be interested as a police officer, when you're working in the crimes which are happening now and you're knocking on doors to talk to rape victims and victims of burglary, etc., and how pressing that must feel, do you have a different perspective on spending money on something which, with a large passage of time, inevitably looks like it has a terrible conclusion for everybody?
I do. That's not to say that an investigation should be concluded or shut down, because at the moment, as we well know, this is still a missing persons inquiry and investigation, highly likely a murder investigation. But the lady also mentioned Ben Needham. Actually, something like 350,000 calls are received in terms of missing persons. 170,000 people are reported each year. As it stands at the moment, there are something like 5,000 long-term missing people that are outstanding. Bodies are found that are unidentified. My personal view is that, yes, it's £108,000, and that £108,000 funds 2 police officers and a member of police staff to work part-time purely on this investigation. In my opinion, that money could be better funded to actually look at a number of outstanding missing persons resources for those families, because every child, every person that's missing does matter. And the public in general feel, why has so much money, £13.5 million, been put into this particular case?
Anna May, sorry, I want to bring you in, but I'm interested as a parenting commentator and author. People bring judgment to this story, don't they, as well? And people judge the parenting. Do you think that influences how we feel about the money?
I think those parents have burnt in hell every day since they made a mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think many people would dispute that they made a mistake, but who's going to be the person who points the finger and says, therefore, your child needs to have died an awful death or is somewhere and they could be found and brought home? It's savage to take that point of view. And I think the money, when you take it in, let's save some police money on stuff and put it towards missing persons then. I mean, look at the Hurty Tweets police, the police going to someone's house to get involved in a school parent dispute. I mean, there's hundreds of stuff. There's so many like that where you could save a few bob, but actually it's not about a few bob, is it? It's a big spend in order to solve a huge international case. And I think the police need to have a resolution on this for them, for how they look as well.
But
blame the parents. Obviously, if they could turn back the clock, they'd have done it already, wouldn't they? But blaming them now just shows such a lack of compassion and the pain they must experience every second of every day. Right. I just don't. There's no amount of money that can change that.
Shavna, in your view, as an experienced police officer, is this search been influenced by the fact the suspect, and he is just a suspect here, who's refused to cooperate, is going to be released from prison probably in a matter of weeks or months and will almost certainly vanish?
Yeah, I think that they hugely, this has a huge impact on it. Remember, he's been a prime suspect in actual fact since 2020. There's been no evidence to actually link him to this crime, but he is a prime suspect. This search now by the German police with the Portuguese authorities, and actually the British police officers are sitting side in case something comes forward. But I would suggest that this is highly influenced by the fact that they don't want to release him later on this year. They want to keep him in custody, but they've got to have the evidence, find that evidence to be able to link him to that crime. Let's just say, and let's hope that something is found that will point the authorities in the right direction. They've still then got to make that link to this particular suspect in order to convict him and bring him to justice again.
OK, thank you, ladies. Fascinating.
Really
Shabnam Chowdhury there and Anna May Mangan. Let me tell you what you've been saying at home. Adrian says, I think British detectives would have solved Madeleine's case if they had taken charge from the beginning. There's no doubt that the parents will have been frustrated. Oh, frustrated is the understatement. Infuriated by the fact that they were under suspicion, and that probably meant that the police at the time did not look in the right places for those initial few weeks and months because they were looking at them as the potential. Jackie says the parents should be held to account. They keep pushing it out there. Jem says, sorry, but a family holiday is being with your family, especially when you have a nanny looking after them most of the time. Surely they could have taken the kids with them. Maddie would have loved being with her mum and dad, bless her heart. This is the judgment. That's exactly what Anna May Mangan and I don't agree on a lot of stuff. I can't deny. We disagree. But I agree with her on this, that actually this is we have to be compassionate to those parents. They're before the grace of God go any of us.
And I say they must wake up every day. Well, she told me that when I met her. Every morning she wakes up, opens her eyes, she thinks about her daughter, what happened to her. And the torture to think what happened to her if she was murdered.
Claire has said, Bevan Andrew, please ask Nigel Nelson to watch Martin Daubney's interview with the 2 Muslim gentlemen last night. And this was about the burning of the Quran. Yeah. And Claire says they don't agree with him and he might listen to them. Claire, I am with you. It was the most remarkable interview that Martin Daubney did on his show last night. You can find it on the GB News app. And you can find it probably on YouTube. I'm sure you know how to do that.
Of course I do.
So Look at Martin's show last night, because they had two incredibly sane and angry Muslim men saying this does not represent our religion. And it was a belter, Dorbs, if you're watching. Well done.
And that's the point I nearly made tonight, actually. It doesn't do the Islamic faith any favours, this sort of court ruling.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure most sensible Muslims think, what the hell?
And Leslie says middle-class doctors, their child goes missing, and 20-odd years later it's still on the front page. Working-class child from a terraced house in Durham, forgotten in months. And there's a lot of truth in that. We said there's a lot of truth in that. The reason it's been in the media is because they sell newspapers. It's a terribly sad truth.
And as Mark White said, probably the biggest international search.
Missing persons ever.
All
Up
around
next.
the world. Jack Carson. That wasn't Jack Carson, actually. We're asking Jack Carson, has he found those peacocks which are causing chaos in a Staffordshire village?
Well, we found plenty of peacocks here this morning. It's thought that there could be 40, and here's one of them showing us all of his feathers. We have just seen him attempt to mate as well. So all of that and more from the village of Tutbury after we get a look on your European travel weather.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The recent heat wave is easing across parts of Spain and Portugal, but plenty of severe thunderstorms remain across northern parts of Europe. But across the Canary Islands, Spain, Portugal, mostly settled, a little cloudy at times, but we could see some quite severe thunderstorms across southern France, southern Germany, northern parts of Italy. This could bring frequent lightning, hail and also some strong winds. But elsewhere across the central and eastern parts of the Mediterranean, plenty of sunshine, and temperatures are on the up through the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, we're going straight to Tutbury in Staffordshire, where Jack Carson is on the search of not terribly elusive peacocks.
Yeah, good morning to you both. Well, we have found some peacocks, so we've been speaking to people today, hearing from them how much of a nuisance they say they are. It is a real mix, though, here. Some people saying that actually they're all right, they're part of the furniture of this village now. You can see this peacock here showing all of its feathers. I'm going to be very honest with you, we have just seen it attempt to mate the peahen that you can see behind it there. And this showing of feathers is part of the thing, what they do to try, part of the mating call here as well, to try and show all of the feathers off and everything like that. And there's a thing that they do train rattling as well. I wonder if Mr. Peacock might talk to us. Mr. Peacock, would you?
Come on, Jack. Come on, Jack. We need you to get involved.
I'm not sure. GB News, Jack Carson.
This is your big David Attenborough moment, Jack.
Any questions to say to the nuisance you might be causing people? Any response?
Although this feels a little bit intimate now, if there's a bit of a moment going on. It's all got a bit voyeuristic.
Very happy to talk to us so far this morning, but some residents of Tutbury here have spoken to us this morning. Take a listen to what they've told us about what they think about all these peacocks.
They've been here longer than I have, so I've lived in the house I live in at the top here 47 years. They've been there all that time, because they were from the castle to start with. The people at the castle used to have them, and they're just part of the village.
I hate them. When they do all that damage, it's heartbreaking, you know. Yeah, round them up and take them to a farm or a zoo, where they're supposed to be.
They're like the furniture. They should stay around here. You know, people just need to let them get on with what they are. They're nature's animals, and they deserve to live around here, don't they?
You know, you heard from those residents there, you know, exactly what they think. Some people say, the gentleman absolutely hates it. The poor man, he's a pensioner. He's been saying he can't afford to keep trying to buy furniture as well. But it's not just the gardens and everything else. You know, it's on the roofs. As here, look, we've got 3 on the roof, peacocks here. One of them all the way at the top, 2 of them here. And when you hear that pitter-pattering on the roof as well, a gentleman here in number 1's just come out to speak to us. He's just told us that he has to wear earplugs at night to try and actually stop the noise, because it's 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning that they're making all of this noise as well. And we've got time to just come over here as well, because I want to show you this is the level that the residents here in Tutbury are going to try and basically stop these peacocks from on their fences, because of course when they sit on the fences all day they're also pooing as well. And you've got another peacock on the roof here. They all are. But have a look at some of the fences here. Now, these are spikes that you can buy online to stop things like pigeons and other birds as well. That residents here in Tutbury have gone to try and stop these peacocks from sitting on their fences and stop being such a nuisance. But of course, some people hate them. They're a bit Marmite here in Tutbury.
Amazing. Thank you, Jack. I think I would quite like them parading around.
You probably wouldn't at 3 or 4 in the morning.
No, maybe not. But apparently they do massive peacock poos.
Yeah.
And that's what people are finding problematic as well, because they got having to jet wash peacock poo from everywhere in Tutbury.
And if they start breeding,
I kind of like it.
You don't really want to watch them breeding in your front garden. Time and a place, Beverly.
So many punchlines I can't use in daytime TV. Right, don't go anywhere. We're going to be talking to Roy Lana. He was a gentleman who attacked the terrorists on London Bridge 8 years ago. Don't go anywhere.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After some heavy rain overnight, a wet and windy day is ahead, including some blustery showers, and not feeling quite as warm, a little fresher, particularly across the north. But outbreaks of rain set to continue across central areas, parts of the south and southeast, as this system slowly sinks its way southeastwards. Turning a little brighter behind it, but still plenty of blustery showers, particularly across Scotland, northern parts of England, where we could see some quite heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain, potentially some coastal gales too across the very far northwest. Feeling fresher here, but across the south and southeast, still temperatures creeping into the low 20s. Now, through the course of the evening, still some cloud and rain lingering across parts of the southeast, Sussex and Kent, for example. A little drier across central and southern parts, though still once again can't rule out some showers, particularly in the west, and fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, still some showers around, but most of the showers skirting their way eastwards across parts of Scotland. Still once again quite heavy at times and still very blustery, particularly across exposed coasts of the northwest. Now, it should turn a little drier overnight, particularly across England and Wales, but there's still going to be plenty of those blustery showers skirting their way eastwards across Scotland, where they're set to continue through most of the evening and overnight period. And still a chance we could see some showers, particularly across parts of Devon and Cornwall, by the time we reach the early hours of the morning. So it's going to feel a little cooler to start Wednesday, particularly in the brisk winds across the north. Then through into Wednesday, a little brighter, but there is still the risk of those showers once again, still across the northwest of the country. And as we head our way into the afternoon, more bubbling up across the rest of England and Wales, particularly across parts of the southwest. But we should see winds lighten off through the course of the day and still feeling a little fresher, temperatures reaching the mid to high teens.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be our biggest winner yet, touring in this stylish Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. This brand new 2025 model comes complete with kitchen and bathroom areas and enough space to comfortably sleep a family of 4. We'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to add a few of your favourite things. Don't miss out as lines close on the 6th of June. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11 o'clock on Tuesday, the 3rd of June, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Good morning, thank you for joining us. So, will there be a breakthrough, finally, in the case of the missing girl, Madeleine McCann? German police officers are looking for new evidence at the prime suspect's former home in Portugal.
Well, the time is ticking for the German and Portuguese authorities, with Christian Bruckner due to be released from prison in the coming months.
London Bridge hero. In just a moment, we're going to speak to Roy Lana, who took on 3 of the knife-wielding terrorists on London Bridge 8 years ago today.
Steel crunch talks. Trade Secretary Jonathan Reynolds is meeting American officials to push for an exemption on steel tariffs. They could be set as high as 50% tomorrow. Is he the man to get that deal done?
We have demonstrated that we are a government dedicated to delivering for defence, committing the largest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War.
That's the Defence Secretary John Healey announcing £5 billion for military drones and lasers as Sir Keir Starmer pins his hopes on gap-year troops to get the army growing. Is Britain battle ready?
And what do you think of this new Donald Trump portrait? The White House has replaced Donald Trump's official portrait with a mugshot-inspired picture. If you're listening on the radio, it's worth turning us on your phone just to have a look at it. He looks very intense, very serious, very statesman-like. Do you like it?
Those pesky people. That's the sound of those pesky peacocks who are causing chaos in a Staffordshire village.
Well, we've seen them on the roofs, we've seen them in front of people's doorways. There are thought to be up to 40 here in this small village of Tutbury. Some of them showing their feathers a bit more than others. One resident told us today he absolutely hates them. Others think they're part of the furniture. We'll bring you all of those views.
That defence spending story. When we were doing that yesterday, if you were watching yesterday, if you stayed with us, then, you know, all credit to you, because it was a very boring speech from Keir Starmer.
They always are.
But I was thinking, and we sat there at the time going, why now? Why the timing of this now? I know he'd instructed this defence review and it was the findings of that. But what he's now done, Andrew, is he's brilliantly teed up a tax rise announcement in October, and it will be, you know how much danger we're under.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep you safe.
And we've got the spending review from the Chancellor in 10 days. She'll drop some hints there.
There you go. Honestly, it's infuriating. gbnews.com/your say. Let us know your thoughts this morning. First, though, Sam Francis has your headlines.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom just after 11 o'clock. Well, the top story today, a new search for Madeleine McCann is underway in Portugal, nearly 20 years after the British toddler vanished. Police are scouring more than 20 plots of land east of Praia de Luz, near a cottage once lived in by the main suspect, Christian Bruckner. Tents have been set up and dirt roads sealed off in nearby Atalia, with officers expected to search wells, ruins and water tanks. It's the first major operation since 2023, when investigators focused on a remote reservoir 30 miles away. Authorities say they're now looking for Madeleine's remains or any trace she may have once been there. Thames Water's hopes of survival have taken, well, a major hit as private equity giant KKR pulls out of a potential rescue deal. The company, which supplies a quarter of the UK's population, now faces the prospect of entering special administration without urgent new investment. Thames Water says an alternative plan is being discussed, but no firm details have been confirmed. The utility giant has been under intense financial pressure for months, with mounting debt and investor uncertainty. Meanwhile, England and Wales' water industry is facing a once-in-a-generation reckoning. That's according to a scathing report that's uncovered systemic and interlocking failures. The Independent Water Commission says fundamental reform is needed in 5 key areas, from government strategy to tougher regulation. It doesn't rule out creating a single super regulator to replace the current fragmented oversight system. Commission Chair Sir John Cunliffe says the system is not working for anyone and new legislation will likely be needed. The government, though, says it will respond in full, calling it a chance to clean up our waterways for good. The UK government is threatening legal action against Roman Abramovich to ensure that £2.5 billion from the sale of Chelsea Football Club goes to Ukraine. The funds have been frozen since 2022 when the Russian billionaire was sanctioned following Moscow's invasion. Abramovich wants the money to help all victims of the war, including in Russia. But ministers say it must go solely to Ukrainian humanitarian aid. The Chancellor and the Foreign Secretary both say they're deeply frustrated and even ready to take the dispute to court. The man accused of firebombing a pro-Israeli rally in Colorado had planned the attack for a year, according to the FBI. Mohammed Soliman allegedly disguised himself as a gardener before throwing Molotov cocktails into a crowd, injuring at least 12 people, including a Holocaust survivor. Court documents say he told police that he wanted to, quote, kill all Zionists and would do it again. Officials also recovered 16 unlit petrol bombs. Soliman, an Egyptian national who overstayed his US visa, now faces federal hate crime and attempted murder charges. And the death toll in Rafah has now risen to 27 after Israeli fire killed a number of people near an aid distribution site, according to local reports. Dozens more were reportedly injured, some seriously, as crowds gathered early on Tuesday for food and supplies. The Israeli military says its troops fired warning shots at individuals who approached from outside designated aid routes. Well, it comes amid fragile ceasefire negotiations with both sides still locked in talks over hostage releases. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you in around 30 minutes' time. Now, though, it's over to Britain's Newsroom.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. Shall we see what you've been saying at home? Now then. Sorry. Hold the line, caller. Not quite ready. Is yours loading?
No. Let's talk to Mark White.
You don't know how to do it, do you?
No, we can talk to Mark, the 30 German police officers reopening the search for clues to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. What do you hear? What do you feel? Is there new clues?
Well, I think there's certainly intelligence on locations that they think might provide them with something tangible, but there are multiple locations that they seem to be searching. And for me, the difference between this and a couple of years back when I was across there at the search at a reservoir and dam, a beauty spot that the prime suspect, Christian Bruckner, used to visit over quite a number of years, it seemed that they had more detailed intelligence and a real idea or belief that perhaps clues about Madeleine's disappearance might have been in that location because he'd taken many photographs there and videos there. People that knew him know that he'd gone to that beauty spot many times. And it was the belief of the German authorities, because he's currently being held, of course, in a German prison at the moment. They are leading the investigation. And he is a German national and the prime suspect in Madeleine's disappearance. The belief was that he may have taken, after abducting Madeleine McCann, the young girl to that location and sadly then murdered and disposed of her body in that location. But back then, nothing was found. Now we've got these multiple locations that are a bit closer to the area where Madeleine McCann disappeared, the Ocean Club in Praia de Luz. Areas around there, some wooded areas heading back to a sort of property that Christian Bruckner used to live in at that time. The reason this is significant, or the reason that Christian Bruckner is seen as a prime suspect, is because lots of circumstantial evidence puts him in Praia de Luz. He used to be a handyman on occasions at the Ocean Club. He also had been in Praia da Luz at the time that Madeleine disappeared. Cell site evidence from his phone placed him at a location not that far from the Ocean Club on the evening that Madeleine disappeared. Lots of other pieces of evidence, but all of it really circumstantial, but pointing to him as the prime suspect, but no smoking gun, no key piece of evidence that links him to Madeleine McCann.
And some suggestion that some of the evidence they're looking at is based on conversations he may have had in prison with fellow inmates.
Yes, there's some evidence from people that served time with him in prison. Others, associates, he didn't have that many, that he'd spoken to apparently during a sort of session in a pub at one time when he'd claimed to a sort of an acquaintance that he was involved in the abduction of Madeleine McCann. I mean, they did carry out a search of a mobile home that he lived for a time in Germany, and did recover quite a lot of evidence pointing to paedophilia, pictures, indecent sexual images of young children and the like, but again, nothing linking back to Madeleine McCann specifically. The police are convinced that he is their man, but until they find that key piece of evidence, then they can't hold this man any longer than the next few months. I mean, September, he is due for release. There's some suggestion they might be able to hold him a little bit longer until early next year. He's currently in prison in Germany, having been convicted of raping a 72-year-old American tourist in Praia da Luz, just under 2 years before Madeleine McCann disappeared. But as I say, it's a race against time.
And of course, every week, every month that goes past, Mark, the evidence is decomposing, disintegrating, more and more difficult.
It's enormously difficult over a period of time, and we're talking now the better part of 2 decades since Madeleine McCann disappeared. Clothing and other key pieces of evidence either disintegrate or decompose. You've got sites, one location in particular that was wasteland that has now some building on it where, you know, diggers could have been in disrupting and you know, unearthing or burying evidence even deeper. It's an enormously difficult task.
You know what's also amazing is, well, you know, we talk about them being middle-class doctors, the parents. Jerry McCann, the father, is an incredibly accomplished, award-winning cardiologist now.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the professor, research professor and professor of cardiac imaging. He's one of the global leads on MRI imaging on cardiac well-being, heart specialist. And again, we were saying how that family has managed to stay together. I think they are remarkable. And I know that a lot of you are criticising them for the events of that evening, but partly the way they've stayed together as a couple must be because they've managed to maintain their careers, get out of bed every day, go to work, have a sense of purpose, help other people.
And don't forget they've got 2 little children too.
Yeah. 20s now.
Yeah, who are now in 20, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are obviously a few issues at play as to why this is such a divisive story. There's certainly a lot of sympathy for the McCanns and their ordeal, there's no doubt. But there are many others who believe that, you know, they bear some responsibility for leaving those children alone at the Ocean Club Resort at that time. But as I said in the last hour, you know, they will be beating themselves up every day over that decision. But there's that. There's also the fact, and I think it could be, you know, a legitimate argument that because of perhaps their middle-class status, because they could afford to hire people that acted on their behalf to get the message out in a PR sense. They were able to keep this story much more high profile. They were able to secure very significant amounts of taxpayer-funded money to aid that police investigation, way over £13 million for Operation Grange, which is still active. It's been downgraded, but still active at the moment. The last grant was £108,000 just this year. So you compare and contrast that to other missing persons that perhaps were not high profile, were perhaps from more humble backgrounds. And that, again, is why there's a lot of resentment out there, what they see as a more privileged middle-class family getting all of this attention.
OK, thank you, Mark. You have all been getting in touch at home. Dave, thank you, Dave, for nudging me to look into the research that the McCanns had done, because Dave says, you know, the amount of research and improvements to treatments carried out by the McCanns ought to be published to offset the judgmental way that society behaves without the necessary knowledge. So, thank you. I wasn't aware of the work that the McCanns had done, particularly in the field, of medicine. PW says to say the British police would have solved the case is completely denigrating to the Portuguese police. Well, they did.
I think most people think I mean, Mark, you
messed it up.
covered it. They made a real pig's ear of it.
The police made some fundamental errors. They didn't take it seriously enough in the first hours after she disappeared by, you know, getting a very intensive search and carrying out all of the detailed forensic works that they should have at that time. And then, of course, there was the time when they chased up false leads, pursuing the McCanns at one time as arguidos, the Portuguese for prime suspect. So, yeah, a lot of criticism for the Portuguese police, who have been on the defensive ever since, really, to be honest. And every time there's talk of a new search or new searches, you get briefings from the Portuguese police saying, effectively, they're not going to find anything. We didn't find anything at the time. Just to remind you, the story that we were talking about earlier about Lorne Castles. This is the PC who lost his job because he kind of lost his cool a little bit when he went to arrest a little scally with a knife. And a lot of you on board and on his side. And just a reminder that Lorne Castles, that now ex-police officer, will be on Nigel Farage on GB News at 7 o'clock tonight, so you can hear his version of events.
Thanks, Mark. That's Mark White. Now, time's running out and your chance to win our great biggest giveaway. It's just a couple of days left. You can drive off with that motorhome worth over £67,000. Here's all the details you need.
There's just 3 days left to grab a chance to win. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be spending your summer touring in this stylish Elnag Baron 560 motorhome, worth over £67,000. This brand new 2025 model comes complete with kitchen and bathroom areas and enough space to comfortably sleep a family of 4. We'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to add a few of your favourite things, or just spend it however you like. Hurry, lines close on Friday. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck. And do you know what I'm looking forward to? What our next prize is going to be.
Yeah. Might be an even bigger mobile.
Maybe it's a private jet next.
That'd be nice. That'd upset the Liberals.
Right, up next. If you are a doctor or a nurse watching Britain's Newsroom this morning, how do you feel about Sir Tony Blair saying that AI will replace you and should?
With Britain's Newsroom, GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Got about another month to go.
So why did you decide to do it? Because I'll tell you what strikes me as being particularly interesting is that most people will not be familiar to seeing someone in your garb sitting on a bus. I mean, you will become a talking point. Is that part of it?
Well, the central part is not me, of course. The central part is the Hospital of St Cross, where I live, which is an absolutely wonderful place to live. And I'm thoroughly enjoying myself there.
Can I ask you, Brother John, how much planning has gone into this? Because I have to say, if I was catching a bus all around the country, I'd be very, very anxious about routes, about where I can get on the bus and timings, all that kind of stuff. So how much work has gone in behind the scenes?
Well, I started before Christmas, and of course, the problem is that at that time it was the winter bus schedules, and then we have the spring bus schedules, and we're now moving into the summer bus schedules. So it's all a bit touch and go. It's when you go along, it's how you get on. But basically, the first thing to do was to establish it was possible to do. So I worked out all the routes round. And I have to say that my bus pass isn't valid in Scotland and Wales, but I have the support of the bus companies, bus operators, who are being very kind and generous and allowing me free passage in Scotland and Wales, where I wouldn't otherwise be covered.
Oh, that's fantastic news. And I have to say, though you look in excellent health and fair fettle, 85...
But I don't have a tattoo, you see. I don't have a tattoo.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns tonight from 7 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11:21. Beverly's getting dressed or undressed. I'm not quite sure what she's doing.
Now, listen.
This used to be a respectable programme.
No, it's never been a respectable programme. Don't wear a onesie if you're doing a TV show and you have to run for a wee in the ad break.
I don't own a onesie.
I bet you do. Behind closed doors. Renee Hunderkamp, can you just sort me out, please? Can you see where my ear?
Why don't I have a chat to Nigel Nelson?
I'm glad there's a doctor in the building.
To Nigel Nelson. Nigel, we're going to talk about...
I've been putting off that wee since 9:30 this morning.
It's too much detail here.
Tom.
It is too much detail,
Too
much detail,
right.
frankly.
Phew, we made it.
We have respectability is restored. The striptease is over. Thank you very much, Renee. As a doctor, you're used to doing this sort of thing.
Zips, earpieces.
Oh,
My
very easy.
all done.
Let's talk to you, Nigel, about the government. It's all about the dinghy crossings, according to the Home Secretary. It's about the weather. Who'd have thought it, Nigel?
Well, that's the point. I mean, for some reason, the Tory party are getting really sort of up in arms about this. But what the government are doing is collecting data about the weather to match with the number of people who cross.
Give me strength.
It's obvious, isn't it?
Why do they collect it in data? When it's not windy, they cross in greater
That's right.
numbers.
So what they want to do is they are just collecting the data to see what sort of weather.
Perhaps they should buy a wind machine.
I was just going to say, why don't they put a great big fan at the coast and just blow them all back?
I think Secretary Patel thought about that, and they decided that wouldn't have worked.
Nigel,
but it's quite a good idea
No,
just
it's
to simply
ridiculous.
have the data.
It just shows how incompetent and hopeless they are.
do you know, we're in a world where they won't tell us who's committing violent sexual crime, but they will tell us about the weather and boat crossings because they want to discuss that in order to find an excuse for why we are going to hit record numbers this year. And you know what? It's irrelevant because what's happening is the boats are bigger, they've got more people on them, and all of the pools that are pulling people here continue. The hotel rooms, the telephones, the driving lessons, the money, everything. Until we stop all of that, The boats are going to come whether the sun shines or not.
Yeah, look, Doc, I take all that point. That's all fine. But the point here is that it seems to be it's a simple data-collecting exercise. What sort of weather encourages more people?
Nigel, you don't need a Home Secretary to do data collecting. We know when it's not very windy, they cross in numbers.
Of course we do.
You look at the sea, think they'll be coming over today.
If it's nice and calm and sunny, or like it was on Saturday, a load of people cross. Of course we do.
They're fiddling while Rome's burning.
Is correlating it. And
Can't they get on with smashing the gangs?
Well, the smashing the gangs thing has not been particularly successful so far this year.
No kidding.
Funny that.
Who could have predicted that, Nigel?
I do think that he ought to have had more of a result. The Keir Starmer should have had more of a result, given that we're now coming into the first year of a Labour government.
Couldn't we also have said to the European Union, stuff your reset agreement until we have a proper deal to stop the migrants flooding across the Channel?
OK, but what does that deal look like?
Well, it means the French police do not stand there idly laughing and taking photographs when dinghies are pouring into the Channel. That's what it means.
Do you know what
That's
it looks like? It looks like this. France. Everyone that comes over, we're bringing them back to you. And every time you say no, we're taking away 10 more fishing licences. That's what it looks like.
Well, OK, well, why doesn't France just join in this little game and say, right, but because these people haven't come to France, they're only passing through France to get to Britain.
They have definitely come to France, Nigel.
They haven't come there to go and sort of look at the sights of Calais. They've come there to actually
come to Britain.
To cross to Britain.
But they're in a safe country.
So they're not actually France's problem.
Yes, they
are.
So
if we follow René's idea...
We're paying them 500 million, so they are their problem.
Well, we're paying them 500 million to try and stop it. But
they're coming from France, because in France they get a tent in a camp.
Right.
They don't get driving licences. They don't get bikes and travel passes and taken to the zoo for a day to help them feel like they're part of us. That's why they're coming from France.
Yeah, but what the French... the French could do is just help them across and take them off and drop them off in Norfolk. If we start saying, right, we want all these migrants to go back to France because you're a safe country...
What do you think the French fishermen would do when their licences started disappearing? What do you think they would do?
How on earth do you actually put licences together with migrants?
Because it's about a negotiation, Nigel. It's about saying, I've got in my hand something you really, really want. You've got in your land something we don't want. Let's do a trade.
And the French will turn around and say, we're not sure we quite like that deal. I'll tell you what, we'll actually ban you from the £150 billion defence contracts that you might be able to get.
We're not in that yet, anyway.
We end up...
Well, we have to pay to get into that, and we don't even know if we're going to get any contracts.
Well, but it's being negotiated at the moment.
Yeah, but why have we already done the fishing deal when we haven't sorted out the Channel?
Yeah.
Because they're different things.
No, they're not.
Can we talk about a different thing?
Please.
Please. I lose the will to live on that topic. I'm so sorry. I know people feel it's important, but I find it so frustrating that nothing changes. Talking of change, Dr. René Hundekamp, Tony Blair would like the likes of you, kind and compassionate, and can do up someone's zip if they need it in your GP surgery like you just did to me. They want you to be replaced by AI.
I know. So, in reading this story, I think there's nothing wrong from using AI in radiology to read reports and spot cancers, and actually a machine, in the end, when it's learned, is probably more accurate at doing that than a human. But what really astounds me in this article is that they're talking about them being more sensitive. It's a more sensitive approach. Now, you ask Ethel, who doesn't see many people in a week, who gets an AI doctor turn up to ask her if she's feeling OK, and, oh, by the way, your temperature is, I'm OK, I'm going now.
And when we say an AI doctor, let's just explain what we mean by that. So it wouldn't be a robot talking to Ethel.
It would be on a screen.
It would be on a screen, and poor Ethel, who may not be very good at technology anyway, because it is all moving so fast and you've got to be way ahead of the curve to understand how to use most systems these days anyway. That chat bot would say, how do you feel? She types in how she feels, and then they would try and work out by the algorithm of the AI what's wrong with Ethel.
Yeah.
It's utterly devoid of humanity.
This is it. We're losing more and more contact. You go to a supermarket, you don't see a human, you look at a machine. You know, everywhere you go now, it's all, can you do it on the app? Can you do it on the app? I tried to book an MOT for my car yesterday and was directed to a chatbot to do it for me.
Yeah.
You know, I was quite happy to talk to a human to do it, but no. And this is what we're doing. And we've got a mental health crisis. You know, the best thing for mental health? Human contact and conversation.
Yeah.
And a doctor, someone like you see someone, René, Renee, you might see them regularly. You can detect change in them.
Yeah.
You can see things.
You can see
feel
their
it.
mood. You can
Yeah.
feel it. Sometimes you say to patients, no, come on, there's something else. You're not telling me.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah. Which AI will not be
Isn't this
programmed
about
to
what
do.
we should use AI for?
Yeah.
I mean, you're suggesting that those things would be the wrong things, but I mean, obviously, AI can help with hospital appointments. It'd be quite useful for that. It'd be quite useful for driving test backlogs, quite useful for passport delays. All those things are quite good. The bit that worries me about it is that we still don't know how AI works. And even Google's DeepMind senior scientist says, we're a bit concerned because we can't work out internally what these things are doing.
I wonder what the very powerful unions in the health service will make of this too.
Yeah, that'll be
BMA, for
interesting,
instance,
won't
the British
it?
Medical Association, because this could take doctors' jobs.
It could take doctors' jobs, everybody's job.
Yeah.
And in the end, what are people, in this world as a whole, not just doctors and nurses, what are people going to do? Then we come back to universal basic income, because that's the only way people will be able to make
Which
money.
has been trialled in Wales for the last couple of years anyway.
Yeah.
Because
Which is
we're
good.
waiting
I mean,
to see
it is something that's worth trialling.
what is universal basic income.
Yes.
To what end?
To what end? What you would do is you get rid of the benefit system. That if universal basic income worked, and at the moment we've only had trials, not just here, but around the world. They've done them in America, done them in Canada, done them in some places in Europe.
Funny that.
Pardon?
It's funny that. It's almost like there's a global push towards the government having more power. And
At the moment, it's only experimental. But the idea would be, if it worked, what you'd be able to do is scrap the benefit system. The whole kind of the DWP wouldn't need to exist because you wouldn't need all that administration.
Hang on, but you're still getting a handout of taxpayers' money. In Wales, it's 400 quid a month is what they've trialled.
Yeah, that's right.
That's not a small amount of money.
No,
that's
it's not.
instead of a job.
What if everybody in England decided that they weren't going to do any work? They were just going to take their universal basic income. Where does the money come to pay the universal basic income?
Well, the money comes from the savings you get from elsewhere because
No.
Because as you start working, the tax system then takes away the excess
But what
money.
if you don't start working? What if everybody stays on universal income?
Well, is it likely that they would do that?
What if that's what happens?
Nigel, there is a
The four of us
generation.
round here, if we had a universal basic income, would we stop work?
No, but a 19-year-old would.
Not necessarily.
How many millions are on
19-year-old
benefits now?
might well decide to go to university or spend even longer at
Who's paying for
university
those?
because of
We've got
it.
9-10 million people who are capable of work who are not working, Nigel.
And then there's a different argument there about why not.
Well, they would love
why
this
we're not
university.
They would
finding
love
out
it
why they're
because all
not.
they do is sit on their screens all day. They watch Netflix. They might go out on a Lime bike, smoke a bit of weed, have 400 quid a week off the government.
Yeah.
Happy days. Trust me, there's a whole generation out there that would happily live like that, and they will end up frustrated, fat, thick, and lacking purpose.
I think you're being unfair to 19-year-olds. I think there's an awful lot out there who would go out and do things.
I think she knows a few.
I do know a few, but
She's
also
come across them.
yeah, but also though, what we were just chatting about in the break. If you feel as a young person you'll never be able to afford your own house anywhere, you never will. You'll never make enough money to drive the Ferraris that they see on social media. Why would you not just take universal basic income and aspire to nothing? Because we're living at the moment in a culture where aspiration is being crushed anyway, because we've got tax rates of about 50%.
Highest ever.
50%. Right, anyway, moving on.
We didn't get a chance to talk about Hugh Bonneville. Never
No, we
mind.
didn't.
Another time.
Oh, goodness.
He's saying farewell to
Heartbreaking.
Downton Abbey.
I know. Right, thank you both so much, Renee and Nigel. Sam Francis, one of our viewers was saying you need to sort your tie out. Here he is. He looks very smart to me. He sorted his tie out. Here he is.
Very good morning to you. The top story this half hour. Well, a new search for Madeleine McCann is underway in Portugal nearly 20 years after the British toddler vanished. Police are scouring more than 20 plots of land east of Praia de Luz, near a cottage once lived in by the main suspect, Christian Bruckner. Tents have been set up and dirt roads sealed off in nearby Atalia, with officers expected to search wells, ruins and water tanks. It's the first major operation since 2023, when investigators focused on a remote reservoir 30 miles away. Authorities say they're now looking for Madeleine's remains or any trace she may have once been there. Thames Water's hopes of survival have taken a major hit as private equity giant KKR has pulled out of a potential rescue deal. The company, which supplies a quarter of the UK's population, now faces the prospect of entering special administration without urgent new investment. Thames Water says an alternative plan is being discussed, but no firm details have been confirmed so far. The utility giant has been under intense financial pressure for months, with mounting debt and investor uncertainty. Talks are ongoing as the government watches closely. And 27 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli fire near an aid distribution site in Rafah, according to local reports. Dozens more were reportedly injured, some seriously, as crowds gathered early Tuesday for food and supplies. The Israeli military says its troops fired warning shots at individuals who approached from outside designated aid routes and posed a perceived threat. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, backed by the US and Israel, runs the aid site. It comes amid fragile ceasefire negotiations, with both sides still locked in talks over hostage releases. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you at midday. Next, though, let's take a look at the markets.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Well, here's how the markets are shaping up this morning for you. The pound will buy you $1.3510 and €1.1845. The price of gold, £2,485.08 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 8,769 points.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Coming up.
Coming up, yes, on Good Afternoon Britain. Usually you introduce us, Andrew. But yes, coming up, it is Good Afternoon Britain at midday.
That is the name of the show.
It is the name of the show. Of course, we're going to bring you the very latest on this exciting development from Portugal. We'll be there in Portugal to find out, could we find out, actually, what happened to Madeleine McCann after all of these years? 2007, she disappeared.
For the family, what they've been through.
I can't imagine it.
Nobody can.
Having no answers for this long. We're also going to be speaking to someone who was at the London Bridge attacks 8 years ago now.
Yes, we were meant to talk to him, but it fell through, so you've got...
You've pinched
Oh, well, you didn't need to tell the world that.
Well, we've been training it all morning.
Yes, we have.
Explain to our viewers what just happened.
Hopefully, not a laughing matter, but hopefully he will be on our show, because he actually stood in the way of the attackers and his friends and became quite the hero, suffering stab wounds himself.
Yeah, he did.
So we'll speak to him.
And, of course, on the political side of things, we are seeing a showdown between a new Gang of Four and the Chancellor Rachel Reeves. So Ed Miliband, Angela Rayner, Yvette Cooper are all sort of ganging up to say, we're not going to settle our budgets quite yet with you, Chancellor. And it's a big question in terms of who's going to win on each side of this divide. The spending review is next week. Huge fears that taxes are going to have to rise to meet all of these budget demands. But a big question now, and a sort of tension, a fight within the cabinet over who actually
Ed Miliband will be the loser.
I think the gloves are off.
Yeah.
But Rayner has
Net
been...
zero is so hideously unpopular.
Rayner has been so willing to brief against this government, allegedly, to perhaps leak some internal tax-raising documents. So, I mean, if the gloves are off internally, it's quite juicy to see where it might fall.
She's quite the street fighter.
She's in a weak position, is Rachel Reeves.
You will be here at 12 o'clock. We have to take a very quick break now, though, because up next, America will double steel import tariffs to... Will America double steel import tariffs to 50% tomorrow? We're going to be talking to a leading figure in the industry. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, 11:40. Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So you heard the President just a few days ago saying he will double the current tariff rates on steel imports from 25% to 50% by tomorrow.
But will the UK get an exemption? And if not, what impact will it have? Let's talk to the Director General of UK Steel, Gareth Stace. Gareth, good morning. Thank you for joining us from our Westminster studio there. How nervous are you that we will not get this exemption, and what would it mean for the industry?
Well, the steel sector in the UK is braced for tomorrow. You know, the Trump tariff tax hike from 25% to 50% is going to hit us hard. It's a further body blow to the UK steel sector. I mean, the 25% tariff that came in March, that was difficult. You know, many orders were cancelled, were delayed, but a 50% tariff that will come into effect, as you say, tomorrow, really, that just halts in its tracks all of our exports from the UK market to the US market, our second biggest export market. And so therefore, you know, what we need is, as you say, you know, an exemption from this whopping tariff tax hike.
So it's our second biggest export market, Gareth. Can you say how many jobs are dependent on those exports to the United States?
Well, the thing is, it's a part of what all of our steel companies, produce and sell to their customers. It's an integral part. It doesn't mean that one site will go out of business or another one won't. It just means it's that further, as I said, body blow to our sector, which has seen imports into the UK rising over recent years to now 70% of UK steel demand. That's unsustainable. And therefore, it was only 3 short weeks ago that our Prime Minister did a deal with President Trump to remove those steel tariffs on all of our exports into the US market to sell to US manufacturers 3 short weeks ago. And instead of those tariffs being removed, what we are seeing is them being doubled. So what we need the UK government to do today is apply rocket boosters to the negotiations with the US administration to get a deal done to remove those tariffs. So our members, steel companies in the UK, can once again load the steel onto the ships, sail across the Atlantic and deliver our much needed and valuable steel to the US market.
It needs the Prime Minister, doesn't it, on the phone here to the President of the United States? Isn't that the key, Gareth? It's not down to Johnny Reynolds, the Business Secretary, or whoever.
I think it's across government. It's government officials, it's ministers. The Prime Minister did the deal directly with the President, and really time is of the essence, because we know, and I've spoken to a steel company yesterday that said he has steel literally on the water at the moment that will dock at the US in the next few days, and that will increase that price of steel that's going to land by a whopping 50%. And he said, his customer or they will have to pay that increase, but that will be it. Those orders will be cancelled from tomorrow onwards.
Well, how closely have you been working with Jonathan Reynolds to get this deal over the line? Has he been listening to you?
Yes, so the whole of the Department for Business and Trade has been listening. We've spoken to ministers at length since that deal was done 3 weeks ago. We've been supplying them all the data they need. All the steel companies have been speaking to the government. So now it's about finalising that deal to ensure that we can start to commence our exports again. But we also need to remember this isn't just the direct impact of us not being able to export to the US, but no other country in the world will be able to export steel to the US. So what will happen to all of that steel? Well, it'll float around global oceans looking for a place to sell, and it'll come to open markets like the UK. So we'll be flooded with steel as well, and that's why it needs government not only to negotiate the deal with the US, but it needs the UK government to ensure that our trade defences are robust enough to stop a flood of steel coming into our market, increasing imports further from 70% to higher, and really damaging our market, because we still remain uncompetitive because of, for example, high and uncompetitive electricity prices here in the UK compared to our competitors in Europe even.
Gareth, yesterday we had details of the defence review. Now, we may be sceptical about just how much of that will be delivered, but could it potentially be important for the British steel industry? Will they use British steel if they're going to build all these submarines and jets with nuclear weapons attached?
Certainly. But it's not only that specialist steel, it's even, the housing stock of the armed forces that will require steel as well. We need to remember that the government is the single biggest purchaser of steel in the UK, yet it buys a third of the steel that it purchases from abroad. We need a culture change, so the UK government, by default, looks to the UK market, to steelmakers in the UK, to say, can we buy the steel we need for various different projects, defence, as you said, but, transport and other infrastructure projects, including energy generation. Can we get that steel from the UK? If we can, let's see if we can buy it from the UK. Yes, if we're really uncompetitive, etc., then that's a problem. But really, we need a cultural change for them to buy more steel from the UK.
Thank you. Brilliantly explained. Gareth Stacey, the Director General of UK Steel.
Big moment tomorrow, isn't it?
It is. Andrew, what is that noise?
June. Definitely Beverly.
That
He's not Beverly.
is not me complaining. There's peacocks causing chaos in Staffordshire. Jack Carson, our very own David Attenborough, is there this morning. Jack, what have you found?
Well, what we found is a lot of people are very annoyed, and some people absolutely delighted at these peacocks. I mean, they are absolutely beautiful when they look at them, but you heard that noise there. Imagine that at 2 a.m. in the morning, keeping you up. That's why people in this village of Tutbury are so annoyed. Some of them trying to get away. If you want to get away, let's take a check on your European travel weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
The recent heat wave is easing across parts of Spain and Portugal, but plenty of severe thunderstorms remain across northern parts of Europe. But across the Canary Islands, Spain, Portugal, mostly settled, a little cloudy at times, but we could see some quite severe thunderstorms across southern France, southern Germany, northern parts of Italy. This could bring frequent lightning, hail and also some strong winds. But elsewhere across the central and eastern parts of the Mediterranean, plenty of sunshine and temperatures are on the up through the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nigel is back.
Good evening.
Unfiltered.
Are these proposals bold enough?
Uncompromising.
Will it bring growth?
Unmissable.
We as a country are brilliant.
Nigel Farage returns tonight from 7 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you're just tuning in, look at that lovely backdrop they've given us.
Now, that looks lovely, but if you're living in this... That is the... Is that the mating cry of a peacock? Actually, that is one of the producers, actually. I have to tell you.
I think it might be Emily Carver. She's got to next to Tom Harwood for 3 hours. She's getting ready. Now, peacocks, no offence, Tom, I love you dearly. Peacocks causing chaos in Staffordshire. If you're just joining us, you might think it's all gone a bit strange this morning. Well, it has been. Jack Carson is in Tutbury. Jack, just explain to people who are just tuning in.
Good morning to you.
What any of this means.
Well, basically, what the sounds of residents we've spoken to decades and decades and decades ago, the owner of the castle here in Tutbury had a couple of peacocks. They eventually were let out, and all of a sudden, you start getting more and more and more. And now the population, according to the parish council, the last official tally was 26. They now think it could be up towards 40 peacocks. And you heard the noise of the peacock there. Imagine that at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, because that is what it seems like is the noise that residents here are really finding a nuisance. It's not just that, it's where they poo in their gardens, it's pecking the tops off their flowers as well. I mean, this peacock here, as you can see, absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, but it's the noise that it makes that I think some people are a little bit upset with because of, and just how many there are. When there was a couple, lots of people here telling them they absolutely love them. Now that there's 40 and they're on their rooftops as well, this is a bit of a problem. So here in Tutbury, we've been finding out from residents, some of them quite annoyed.
Well, thanks for that, Jack. Peacock pie, anyone?
Peacock pie for lunch, anyone? I'm
There's
sure
the
they
thought.
used to eat peacock.
Sure they did. In the days of Henry VIII, though.
Yeah.
I would think.
Anyway,
That's
we
it
might
from
be
Britain's
a
Newsroom.
bit more normal tomorrow morning at 9:30. Emily and Tom will be up in just a minute.
Yeah, and don't forget that really super-duper interview with Nigel Farage later on this evening. He's back. Nigel's back, which is great news.
Yeah. See you tomorrow.
Well, the hunt is on in Portugal. German and Portuguese police digging to see if they can find the remains of Madeleine McCann.
And it's 8 years on since the London Bridge terror attack. We'll speak to someone who was there and risked his life to save his friends.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After some heavy rain overnight, a wet and windy day is ahead, including some blustery showers and not feeling quite as warm, a little fresher, particularly across the north. But outbreaks of rain set to continue across central areas, parts of the south and southeast, as this system slowly sinks its way southeastwards, turning a little brighter behind it, but still plenty of blustery showers, particularly across Scotland, northern parts of England, where we could see some quite heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain, potentially some coastal gales too across the very far northwest. Feeling fresher here, but across the south and southeast, still temperatures creeping into the low 20s. Now, through the course of the evening, still some cloud and rain lingering across parts of the southeast, Sussex and Kent, for example. A little drier across central and southern parts, though still once again can't rule out some showers, particularly in the west, and fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, still some showers around, but most of the showers skirting their way eastwards across parts of Scotland. Still once again quite heavy at times and still very blustery, particularly across exposed coasts of the northwest. Now, it should turn a little drier overnight, particularly across England and Wales, but there's still going to be plenty of those blustery showers skirting their way eastwards across Scotland, where they're set to continue through most of the evening and overnight period. And still a chance we could see some showers, particularly across parts of Devon and Cornwall, by the time we reach the early hours of the morning. So it's going to feel a little cooler to start Wednesday, particularly in the brisk winds across the north. Then through into Wednesday, a little brighter, but there is still the risk of those showers once again, still across the northwest of the country. And as we head our way into the afternoon, more bubbling up across the rest of England and Wales, particularly across parts of the southwest. But we should see winds lighten off through the course of the day and still feeling a little fresher, temperatures reaching the mid to high teens.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be our biggest winner yet, touring in this stylish Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. This brand new 2025 model comes complete with kitchen and bathroom areas and enough space to comfortably sleep a family of 4. We'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to add a few of your favourite things. Don't miss out as lines close on the 6th of June. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB